Hey everybody, this is Nancy Norbeck, and I have this week's Creative Pep Talk. I just finished today doing the second Permission to Play workshop, which if you couldn't make it, I'm so sorry you couldn't because it was fantastic. And I'm thinking about doing it again. So if you're interested in that, be sure you get on my Substack list because that's where I'm going to be sharing all the details for it. But, in the process of talking about play, one of the things that people don't realize because we diminish play, we say it's just for kids, we say adults shouldn't play, adults should be serious, and I don't know who came up with that and why, but boy are they wrong. But we tend to think that if we start something, we have to finish it, right? And this is a cultural thing too, right? We look down on people who start things and don't finish them, but the fact is it is okay not to finish things. If you enrolled in medical school and you knew by the middle of the first semester that there was no way you wanted to be a doctor, would you make yourself finish? I mean, it's expensive, it's grueling, and what would you do? You'd almost be forced to be a doctor at the end of it. I mean, you wouldn't really, but you'd probably feel like you were because then you'd have all of this sunk cost thing going on. Would you really do that to yourself? I mean, I hope not. I hope you'd say, wow, I am in the wrong place and it's time to get out now in the middle of this first semester because now I know more about myself. I know this isn't for me, right? The same thing can happen when you're working on a creative project. It could be that the idea you had for a book or a painting or whatever it is isn't working out the way you thought it would, and you realize that you need to go back and revisit it and think about it again. Now, it's also possible that the way that it is going is teaching you something, and maybe it's worth sticking with that a little bit longer. But if it feels like you're forcing yourself to do it, that's really a sign that it's time to do something else. It is okay to play with ideas. It is okay to learn from ideas and never finish them. And think about, painters like Van Gogh and Monet and Picasso. And I always think of the French painters because I had a French teacher who was nuts about French art. But, plenty of others who did study after study after study before they ever attempted to do the real thing. That's what play is. You're trying on different ideas, you're trying different angles. Maybe it should be set up this way. No, I'm not so sure I like that. So I'm going to try this other thing until something finally clicks. If you don't give yourself that permission, you're not going to be satisfied with your final product. You're also not going to have as much fun because it's going to feel forced. And feeling forced never feels good in any context, really. So I just want to encourage you to give yourself permission not to finish things. If that poem just isn't working for you, set it aside. You can always come back to it later. If something clicks in your head and says, hey, I want to try this again. But or go through it 10 times if you want, trying it different ways. That's okay too. That's exactly what I'm talking about. But this crazy idea we have that you must finish everything, including your dinner when you're 5 and maybe older, or you're a bad person, just doesn't really hold a lot of water when you stop and think about it, especially when you think in terms of a process. You gotta know when to let it go. And I talked about that about a year ago when I read Annie Duke's Quit. There's a couple pep talk episodes about quitting you might want to check out if you haven't already and you want to hear more. And, when to just try new stuff and experiment, pretend you're in a lab, right? I mean, anything can happen. And the only way to find out is to throw different things together and see what the reaction is, just like a chemistry lab. So give yourself permission to not finish things. Give yourself permission to try different things with no intention of them being a final product, of experimenting, seeing what works, if they work at all, and being okay with it if they don't, because even then you have learned something that you will use later. None of it is a failure. So stop telling yourself that it is. It's not. It's great success. So give that a try. Let me know how it goes. Make sure you get on the mailing list if you want to know when the next workshop is. I'm actually planning to do these more often because I have enjoyed them so much. And that link is in your show notes in your app. And I'll see you next time.